G'day everyone, welcome back to another edition of Guvs Hero Review videos. We are taking a look at another hero of the month, today specifically the 5-star legendary heroine, Dynasty, the Adventuring Aristocrat. So Dynasty has just been added to PuzzleCombat as the featured hero of the month for May 2024. During this period, she is attainable as a 1% bonus draw on any hero summons that you do throughout the month. After this month concludes, however, the only way you are going to be able to summon Dynasty is via the Manor of Legends portal. But that's not going to commence for 9 months' time. That portal does, however, have some of the worst odds in the game. They're pretty horrendous to summon for a specific hero, particularly when they are not a featured hero. So if we take a quick little bo peep at some of what those odds might look like. So as the featured hero of the month in May, as I mentioned, she is a bonus draw. So you can see there is the legendary hero of the month bonus draw. Across any of the summons at 1%. To put that into perspective, if you were to do 100 summons across any of the portals for the month, any of these legendary hero portals and that, you have a 63.4% probability of gaining Dynasty as a bonus draw. So that's across any of the portals throughout the month. After that month, when Dynasty hits the Manor of Legends portal, it does drop off substantially. So in that portal, there is a 1% chance for one of the two featured heroes and a 0.9% chance for the unfeatured hero. So again, doing those 100 summons in that portal, to summon specifically for Dynasty, when she is the featured hero of the month, it is just a 39.4% probability. And when she is an unfeatured hero, it will just be a 2% probability of getting Dynasty. And that number will drop off further. So, that specific odd for Dynasty at 2%, that is the future odds, I guess. When Dynasty is going to be in that portal, there will be 42 unfeatured heroes, which is just going to get further and further off as more heroes are added to that portal. So let's just pause for a sec, and I'm going to jump across and we can take a look at her artwork right quick. Alright, so here we can see the artwork, thanks to EJEM's SMI, or EJEM for posting this one up. So this is Dynasty's artwork. So there's a bit of, like, I guess, those Amazonian vibes going on with the some of the gold bling and the white dress, I guess. You know, like the Amazonians and Wonder Woman and all that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of what her artwork is. She's got two revolvers, which have got little shield-like tassel things hanging off the bottom. I'm not sure what the purpose of those tassels is. But yeah, that's her artwork, so feel free to pause it if you wish. She does have something of a, I guess, regal expression, or a I'm superior to you sort of look going on, looking down at the world, so to speak. So anyway, pause it if you wish, but otherwise I'm going to jump back across and we can start taking a look at her card and her stats specifically. So, in terms of these normal review videos, normally I'd discuss the hero's family bonus at this stage, but you can see there's not actually any family bonus for Dynasty, and this is the case for all of the heroes of the month. SGG have not as yet put a family bonus on the heroes of the month. Maybe sometime down the track they will do that, but at this point in time, there's nothing for Dynasty or any of the other heroes of the month that have been added to the game. In terms of her personal stats, Dynasty comes in with 822 attack, 681 defense, and 1445 HP. So it is a pretty big skew of those stats going from that defense across to the attack. The HP is about normal, and it's pretty much just the defense that's very, very low. So she's not a full-blown glass cannon. For that, you'd have to have low defense and low HP, but she is still pretty attack-focused in that regard as well. I will point out as well, her power is set to 732, which is the highest of the heroes of the month. So if we look at some of the other heroes of the month, like Jocasta, who was just featured in the Manor of Legends portal, she has a power of just 684. So Dynasty is quite a bit higher than those older heroes of the month, and all that means is that the total base stat distribution for Dynasty is higher compared to those older heroes. So there is power creep here in Dynasty's favor, but again, also if you look at some of the newer event heroes like Topaz, for example, Topaz has like 742 total power, so there is a little bit of a gap there as well. So yeah, her charge speed is set to 65, which is fast speed and requires 8 tiles to charge, or 4 ghosted tiles. The speed break happens at 72 speed, which requires +7 speed improvement, which you can do. There is a weapon that gives +7 in yellow, which is the Tris Vector. It's a 4-star gun and giving +7 speed improvement. Alternatively, you can also get that speed break by combining the +6 Ragnarok Vantage with the 2% charge generation node on Dynasty's class tree. So yeah, there's 2 ways you can get that speed break. There's absolutely no way you can get a double break. Well, I mean, you can if you combo like a crazy high charge improvement, like 30 or 48% or something like that. But anyway, the basic charge breaks are worth getting probably for the class node if you are going to be using the Ragnarok Vantage with Dynasty, which I anticipate a lot of people will do. In the topic of her class, she is a member of the Sharpshooter class, which grants her the chance to bypass all defensive buffs, including counterattacks, on the target enemy. It's a pretty useful effect. It does negate any buffs which the hero might have, which would reduce or dampen the damage that you're going to be dealing. It is only a chance to bypass, so I wouldn't really use it as a guarantee to kill counterattack heroes, but it does give you an opportunity to bypass those buffs. By way of a natural emblem path, I personally would probably be going a attack path. Sorry, not an attack path, that's a mistake. A defense path is what I would do for Dynasty. The main reason for this is just to try to enhance her survival, right? She is a very attack-heavy hero already, so you probably don't need to improve her attack stats, but if you can give her some additional defense, maybe she can survive a bit better. So what this looks like on a class tree, I'm going to use Giselle's as the example, but just pretend it's Dynasty. I'm going to pick up the defense and HP nodes at each of the turns. As I mentioned, that speed node is actually of some value to Dynasty, so we are going to pick that node up. So we will keep going down, picking up attack and defense at each of the nodes. You can probably stop fairly comfortably at +18. The 19 and 20th nodes, 20 is definitely not going to give you any value at just a 4% crit bonus for 250 emblems, and I personally argue that the 125 emblems for that health bonus is also not a good use of emblems. But that's sort of the path that I would be following for Dynasty if we're going to pick up the defense points. You can also very equally go just attack path just to keep smashing home that damage. If you are going an attack path, it would be sort of the inverse. So we are picking up the nodes which give attack, still grabbing the speed node for that charge break with the Ragnarok Vantage, but otherwise picking up attack nodes throughout the tree. So that's the attack path as compared to the previous defense path I showcased. Cool. All right, let's jump back in and have a look at her skill. So her skill is titled Cursed Revolvers, and at level 10 skill and 65 charge speed, it will deal 485% damage to the target. It will then reduce the maximum HP of the target by 220, and that max HP reduction caps out at 70% reduction to their original HP. That effect lasts to the end of the battle. It will then increase the duration of status ailments on the target by 3 turns, and apply finally a miscast ailment to the target giving them a 72% chance to utilize their offensive special skill on their allies instead. So, couple dot points in there. Some of them are quite interesting. Some of them are less so, or less exciting anyway. But as always, I will start with the damage component. So I tend to compare these heroes based on their attack power. It just removes the variability of the damage calculation and is analogous to the final damage output in the end anyway. Attack power is just the hero's attack stat, 822, multiplied by the percentage in her special skill, which is 485%, and then I normalize it against the tiles to charge their speed. So in the case of Dynasty, we can see her there coming in at number 1 on the list of yellow snipers in the game, with an attack power per tile of 498, which is pretty bonkers. Like, it pops off and beats the previous highest attack power per tile of Topaz by almost 100 points. Like, it's pretty much a 25% improvement over what Topaz was doing. Now, admittedly, obviously, Dynasty's only got a single shot, and Topaz has the chance to do 2 shots, but in either case, it is still a very marked improvement in the attack power. So, a lot of the comments that I made in my review video of Nomad, they do still apply here. Like, it is a very, very big step change up in the attack power. Like, you just look at any of the other options in that chart, and they are 1, 2, even some of them are like 400 attack power behind what Dynasty is for their damage output, which is like, that's a massive change in the attack power. So I don't think that I like the fact that SGG seem to have taken this recent trend of doing these big attack power leaps in terms of the snipers. They have recently been putting out a number of snipers across all the elements who are far and away much more lethal compared to their in-game alternatives that already exist. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be the case, but if this trend continues and we see the next attack power yellow sniper comes out with a 6 or a 700 attack power, it very well could lead to a rapid death spiral of the game via power rush. Power creep is understandable, which is where heroes gradually get better over time. Power rush or power leap is where it massively changes in a very, very short period of time between recent additions to the game. So again, I'm not saying that's the case, and I'm not saying that's what we're going to see, but it is a potential concern that SGG should be aware of if they wish to have this game continue on into the future. Now, I will say that the only real saving grace here for Dynasty, compared to some of those other heroes that I mentioned, like Topaz and Nomad, there isn't any actual opportunity for Dynasty to be inflicting a higher amount of damage. So if we look at those two options I mentioned, Nomad, who is just absolutely busted, like he's stupidly broken in terms of his attack power, because he has that Berserk buff as well that goes on it. And that Berserk buff can push him up to like 1,000 attack power or higher. Topaz, he has that secondary hit, which does effectively, when it executes, double his attack power. But in the case of Dynasty, she's only got that one shot, essentially, at 498. Now, admittedly, it is still very much clear from any of the other options. Like, you look at the next best option on that list, and it's Cooper, but specifically Cooper at his maximum damage when he's hitting someone with less than 50% health. And even then, we're almost like, I think it's like 80, 83 points clear is the difference there. So, yeah. Not encouraging if this is going to be a forward trend. Now, again, for Dynasty, as I said, single shot only, and the other real benefit for Dynasty is that we do very much see a toning back in the continued elements of her skill. So all of the secondary effects of her skill are not as peak as what her damage is, which is something we definitely didn't see in Nomad. So we'll start with the next line in her skill, which is the max HP reduction, which is, well, in a word, garbage. So the line is that it reduces the max health from the target by 220. Max health can't get lower than 30% of the original max health. This effect lasts until the end of the battle. So to really quickly overview how this effect works, essentially when an enemy is hit by this effect, a portion of their HP bar is grayed out and it becomes unavailable for the rest of the fight. So a hero with 1500 HP will get their HP reduced by 220. So it'll go from 1500 max HP down to 1280 for the rest of the battle. So it's very similar to the Monster Island effect, where in that one, 20% of damage received, it becomes permanent irrecoverable. So it's a very similar effect, but in this case, for Dynasty, it only lasts for the duration of that fight. So as I said above, the overall summary for this point is that it is very, very, very useless. Like, it's such a tiny quantity on a very limited range, target only, which means that there is going to be almost no material impact on a battle at all. So to expand on it a little bit, it's an effect that came into PuzzleCombat from Empires and Puzzles, where it was made very, very popular by a specific hero called Alfre. However, when Small Giant Games moved the effect between their two games, EP and PuzzleCombat, they didn't bring across what actually made reduced max HP devastating, which was namely the magnitude of the HP reduction and the range of the HP reduction. So in Empires and Puzzles, Alfre was doing a very, very slow charge speed. She was 12 or 13 tiles. However, when she did fire her skill off, she would execute 5 instances of the HP reduction, each of them doing minus 224 HP. So that's more HP reduction on a single hit, and Alfre was doing 5 of those hits. They were 5 random instances. So what it meant was that Alfre was doing just shy of 80% of her total health as a max HP reduction. By comparison, Dynasty here is doing 220 max HP reduction, which is only 15% of her HP pool per cast. To get to that maximum allowable amount of 70% reduction, you would have to hit the same enemy 6 times. On a more chunky hero like a plus 20 pulse, it's only an 11.9% of her HP pool. And let's be real, you're not going to be hitting the same enemy more than once with Dynasty because of how much damage she deals with her initial shot. Like 2 shots and they're gone, they're dead. Like you're not going to get 2, like you're not going to get 3, 4, 5 or even the 6 necessary shots. So it's for this reason that I keep saying that the max health HP reduction in PuzzleCombat is just worthless. It's pointless. Like it may as well not even be on Dynasty's card here. It makes that little impact. And it's not even just Dynasty. It's all of the other instances of it in PuzzleCombat as well. Like we see it on Xander. Xander does 112 to one enemy, which is 8.7% of his HP pool. The other one is Viper, who does 160 to 3 enemies, which is not much better. Like it's a similar amount of reduction. So yeah, it was a really, really awesome effect in in Empires and Puzzles, but when they brought it across to PuzzleCombat and have implemented it now on 3 heroes, Viper, Xander, and Dynasty, in all 3 cases, it just may as well not be there. So yeah, not a good effect at all. So the third part of her skill is the ailment duration increase. So it increases the duration of status ailments on the target by 3 turns. So generally speaking, I do actually like this effect. I think it is a fairly nice effect. You can use it to great combination with other heroes throughout your team. So it's very useful for things like DOT, because what it does with damage over time is it doesn't reset, like it doesn't affect the tick per turn of damage. All it does is extend the duration. So if we take an example of Blaze, the Blaze element would typically do 368 damage over 2 turns or 184 HP per turn. So in the case of Dynasty, she's going to expand that from being a 2-turn effect up to a 5-turn effect, which is a 920 HP loss over those 5 turns. So very, very useful for damage over time. Also really great to combo with charge control, such as Insanity or Charge Stop, because it will, obviously extend those ailments out considerably. The flip side of it as well, though, is that even though this is a really great effect, it's poorly executed. Well, it's not well executed on Dynasty. So yes, she does do it for 3 turns, ailment extension. Most of the heroes only do a 2-turn extension. However, most heroes will do it on 3 or 5 enemies. They'll either do it to all enemies or they will do it to target nearby. Dynasty only does the target, all right? And it's also worth pointing out at this point that it's going to be a very limited opportunity to actually make use of this effect, because if we go back to that damage line, her attack power means that there's not actually going to be much health left on the target hero after she shoots, let alone having enough of a health buffer to first take an ailment from someone else and then take Dynasty's shot as well. So it's not really going to be too many heroes that can take both of those hits. Maybe there will be some if they sneak in a cheeky heal during the gap between the ailment shot and Dynasty's. But if there's a heal, most healers also have a cleanse on them, so there's no ailment there anyway. So yeah, unfortunate for Dynasty because it does somewhat null and void the effect, but it's also very good because it does balance out that insane damage that she's got as well. One useful impact, though, for Dynasty's ailment extension, which I will mention briefly here, is against War Machines. So War Machines, there's only a single target anyway, and you will typically bring a lot of ailments like Defense Down or Elemental Defense Down. So Dynasty will extend those durations, and it doesn't matter that it's only against a single target, and the War Machine also has a very high HP pool anyway. So that is probably the best application for Dynasty's ailment duration extension is on the War Machines. In raiding, yeah, I just can't see it being likely to occur. So yeah, final part of our skill is the misfire. So the target gets a 72% chance to target their allies when using an offensive special skill for 3 turns. So I would probably say that this is the most interesting element of her skill. The easiest way to describe it is as a confusion effect. It kind of, I guess, like what you see in Pokemon, where when they're confused, they can hurt themselves. It's the same sort of thing with Dynasty's effect. So instead of just hurting themselves, it basically creates a chance for the enemy heroes to, in their confusion or their misfire, hit their own allies instead with their special skill. So you do not get any control over who gets hit by that enemy hero's skill. It is randomly allocated by the AI. They'll just pick a target and then execute the skill. The other thing to note is that it is only offensive special skills, which means that it's only skills that are going to be negatively impacting the enemy team. So it's not strictly limited to damage dealing heroes, but that is the vast majority that is it's going to apply to. There's also another couple little interesting things with the skill. So in the event of a misfire, it executes the full skill against the affected allied team members. It's not a partial execution, it's a full skill execution, which means that you're going to get all the damage, all of the ailments, and all of the other things that go with the skill. It's also interesting as well because it can then proc any of like the class bonuses. So you could, in their confusion, target their ally and do like a shell shock, or it might do a pierce, or it might do the spy charge cut. So that's a little bit interesting as well. The other thing that I really want to double down on is that it is a fairly unique effect. There's only one other hero in the game that has this misfire, and that's Umbra. Fiddle has a passive stack which is kind of close, but it only applies to ailments. But Dynasty and Umbra are the only two heroes that have this full misfire. The big difference though is obviously that Dynasty has a much higher likelihood. It's a 72% misfire chance versus a 36 on Umbra. But the duration of the two effects is the same. They are only target only. So it will be interesting to see how much this effect actually comes into play, because once again, Dynasty's very high damage output means it's unlikely that many heroes are going to be surviving with much HP to actually get to a special skill cast, let alone misfire onto their own team. It will be a little bit interesting, I think. So, yeah. The other thing as well is that this isn't actually classed as a charge control. Even though it affects the enemy hero's special skill and the targeting of that, it's not actually charge control, so you can use it on heroes like Vasquez or Sarge, who grant themselves charge control immunity. It can, obviously, because it is an ailment, still be blocked, resisted, removed, cleansed, all of the usual things, which is, yeah, not hugely consequential, just a final interesting little tidbit. So overall, I do think that Dynasty is a fairly solid hero. I think she is probably a bit damage heavy, if we're going to be completely honest. She has some insanely high damage output, but that does very much reduce or negate the effectiveness or the likelihood of all of her secondary effects, because they are less likely to still be alive. Now, don't get me wrong, I still don't like the fact that there has been a big shift in that power, that attack power between Dynasty and even the previous best of Topaz. I don't agree with it. I think it is not in the best interests of the game, shall we say. But the saving grace is, though, that because it's such a high damage output, most of the secondary effects aren't very likely to be playing an impact on battle. So anyway, I do think, though, that the miscast is going to be a lot of fun to play with. I think people will get a lot of enjoyment out of that if they can time it right and hit someone that survives. Umbra was a lot of fun in that regard, but it'll be interesting to see if Dynasty gets more use and more attention than Umbra did back in the day. So yeah. Anyway, we'll just wait and see. So I think the takeaway for Dynasty is that she is definitely a hero that's worth leveling if you get her, but I wouldn't say she's necessarily a hero that is worth chasing after. She's not going to be what you'd call a game breaker or a meta breaking hero, I don't think. So for her grading, I'm going to give Dynasty an A- for War and Raid attack. I think if she had less damage and was able to use all of her secondary skills, we might grade her a bit higher, but I think her damage does cut a little bit into the effectiveness of her secondary skills, a little bit in that regard. For War Machines, I'm going to give her a B+. Typically, I don't grade snipers very highly on War Machines, particularly ones that don't have secondary effects, but because Dynasty will increase the ailment duration of all of her allies' ailments, and War Machines are very much an ailment dependent fight, I'm going to keep her at the B+ there. For the eventing, I'm going to give her a B-. She's a single target only hero, which is really terrible for eventing. She does pack a bit of a punch, so hence why she's not being given in the Cs for that. So a B- for event competition. For war and raid defenses, I'm going to keep her in an A- here. I do think the best spot for her is probably the flank or the wing position. Snipers do tend to get relegated to the wing position because the flanks usually end up being a slightly slower or an AoE class hero. So yeah, I think Dynasty will probably be best suited in the wing role there. In the 3 tournament settings, so I'm going to give her, for the Bloody Battle, I'm going to give her an A- for attack and a B+ for defense. She does lose the max HP reduction, but it doesn't really change her grading because it's effectively worthless anyway. It is worth pointing out as well that because there's no healing, it's more likely that the enemy team are going to die from her skill, her damage output as well, because you can't heal back and recover from it. And the buff boosters, I'm going to give her a B+ on attack and a B+ on defense. There is absolutely no real benefit to her skill in this arena at all, so a B+ on both of those. And then finally for the charge attack tournament, where her speed is unchanged because it's already 65 speed, I'm going to keep her at a B+ for a charge tournament attack and a B+ for charge tournament defense, because yeah, there is no speed improvement. She doesn't gain any benefit out of the tournament rule set, unlike some other heroes do. So overall, that comes out as being a B+ for her overall attack grade and a B+ for her overall defense grade. And that concludes the content for this review of Dynasty. As always, these are just my personal opinions on these heroes. I do love hearing your thoughts and feedback on them, so please feel free to jump down to the comments section and leave me a note. I try to read and respond as much as I can. If you found this video to be good, useful, and helpful, feel free to like the video, subscribe to my channel, but definitely share the video around as well, because chances are, if this sort of thing is useful for yourself, it's also going to be useful to the people you play with as well. Thank you once again for tuning in and joining me. I do hope I will see you again soon, but until then, good luck, stay safe, and happy gaming. Cheers, bye!